Hello friends, and welcome to my kitchen. Today we'll be making a hearty and delicious beef stew, so let's get right into it. For this recipe, you'll need a nice sized chuck roast. I have some carrots and celery stalks, 2 bay leaves, 2 garlic cloves, 1 shallot, 1 yellow onion, and 1 orange. Then we also have some ground cloves, some granulated sugar, pancetta, and some tomato paste. We have all-purpose flour, red wine vinegar, a Guinness extra foreign stout is what it's called, some chicken stock, fresh thyme, and fresh parsley, and that's everything. Now, to save time, I pre-cut all my vegetables. You guys have seen me do this prep work a lot of times. I just cut my onions, celery, and carrots into big pieces. I minced my shallots, minced my garlic. I've got about 4 or 5 sprigs of thyme. And then the orange, I just kind of peeled a couple of pieces of the rind, just not too deep to get the pith, and then I cut it into tiny strips like that. I also cut about a handful of parsley. And now that prep is done. For the chuck roast, I just want to clean it up a little bit. I start by cutting it into strips. I can trim away any excess fat, like there's a big chunk of fat there that I can cut off and remove. I'm not trying to remove all of the fat. A little bit on the edges is okay. And now I'm just cutting very big pieces. I like it this way. If you want to cut them into small pieces, you can do that. This is just the way that I've always done it. Now you want to season your beef with some kosher salt and black pepper. You want to season pretty aggressively. Make sure to flip over the meat and season the other side. Just make sure it's nice and coating all of the sides of the meat as well. And now I'm going to place the seasoned beef into a large bowl. Now add 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Give the beef a toss. Make sure it's nice and well coated, but not a lot of excess flour, just dusting and covering the pieces. Now that our beef is prepared, we can start the next step, which is rendering our pancetta. I placed about 4 ounces of pancetta into a pan that was turned off with no heat, and then turned it on to about a medium, and let the pancetta slowly render and release all of its fat and get nice and crispy like that. As soon as it gets to that point, we can remove it onto some paper towels. I'm using a slotted spoon because we want to save as much of that grease as possible to sear our meat. And be careful with these little nuggets because they're delicious. If you start munching, you might not have any left over for the stew. Now, turning our pan up to medium-high, we want to cook our beef in batches. We don't want the pieces too close together. About an inch or so apart is good. And just take your time and get a nice crust on the outside of each piece. For me, I cooked all the beef in about 2.5 batches. Once we've browned off the beef, we can place it to the side. Now we can begin building our braise for our stew. We're going to add our 1 yellow onion into all those delicious meat juices, a lot of which have gotten stuck to the pan during the searing the meat process, which is no big deal. We're going to salt the onions right away to help them release their water, and that's going to help release the fond on the pan, which is those little sticky, delicious bits on the pan. I'm adding some shallot and garlic. That was 1 shallot, 2 garlic cloves. And we're going to saute that for about a minute. The smell is already delicious. After giving the garlic and shallots about a minute to soften up, I cleared a space in the middle of the pan for about 1.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. Just let the tomato paste cook for about a minute, develop kind of like a rust color, and just develop some of those sugars. As you can see here, I'm adding a small drizzle of red wine vinegar. That's just gonna help add balance to a very savory stew. Now we can add our stout. This is called Guinness Extra Foreign Stout. And reading the back, it said it has notes of chocolate, caramel, and dried fruits. You could use a wider range of different stouts. You don't have to use this one. You could also just use red wine instead of stout altogether. At this point, we just want to cook for a couple minutes to make sure all of that fond is released off the bottom of the pan. Right here, I'm adding not even 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. A little bit goes a long way. Go ahead and stir that in. Add a couple pinches of sugar. And now we can start building our stew. I'm so excited for this. I've been heating up my crock pot for about 10 minutes on high because I want the stew to come up to a simmer as quick as possible. That's why I'm using hot pads for the crock pot. It's already hot. Now place in your beef along with any accumulated juices you might have. Add your carrots, your celery. Pour over that beautiful braise that we made. Place over top all of that pancetta. I only had a couple pieces, I swear. We're gonna dump in 1.5 boxes of chicken stock just to cover the beef. You can use beef stock if you want. I thought that might be too strong with all the flavors in this particular stew. Now I added my bay leaves, my orange zest, my bundle of thyme. Place a lid on that. As soon as the stew comes up to a simmer, give it a final stir. I know it doesn't look good at this point, but trust me, it will. And now you have two options. You can place your crock pot on high and cook for about 5 hours, or put it on low and cook it for 10 hours. I chose the latter. This is after 10 hours. The aroma is absolutely intoxicating. Fish out your thyme sprigs, your bay leaves. Make sure to give it a taste test to make sure it doesn't need any more salt or pepper. Mine was perfect. We did add quite a bit of salt to the onions and the beef in the beginning, so I don't think it needed any. And it thickened up pretty well because of the flour on the beef, but I just want to tighten it up a little bit more, so I added equal parts warm water and cornstarch and just whisked that in until I got it to the consistency I wanted. Add your parsley at the end, and this is ready to go. All right, so we're gonna sample this. Smells incredible. The house smells so good. The meat is so tender. It has a very nuanced flavor. The Guinness gravy has really good balance. You wouldn't even know that there's the cloves in it, but it really brings a nice balance to the savory, the sweet, the caramelly, the malt. Let's try some of the root vegetables. Those root vegetables are fire. Thank you guys for being here. I know it's been a little while since I posted, but I'm hoping to get back in the kitchen more. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. Leave us a like, drop us a comment, and we'll see you on the next video.